So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end as per Yeshayahu the prophet. Then we find a layer of understanding of the 61st chapter, where then the spring feast is completed, and then the autumn feast is mentioned, and also the returning of the holy cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. Then let's understand the economy of the world and what China then is preparing for the rest of the planet. Let's understand firstly, this last section of the trade of the end was already on schedule from a long time ago. It was not simply long ago, but it was then placed on instructions where then the vast majority of the world was not acquainted with it, because there were many translations of the instructions, and some of those translations were then twisted in order to make the government inclusive in a plan of taxation. Later this must be explained. So let's understand what goes on in America. Lots of politics going on, and then there are lots of areas of the government where then the president can't do very much because of personal interests, because of the private sector linked up with very important areas of our government, then takes away the leverage of the president of making decisions. So then there is not much going on in our country, not because the president does not want to do it, it's because the situation involving then these trade of the time of the end versus then the inability of then placing the economy under the control provides then a very lethal economical situation. So then our only hope is relying upon England and its wisdom. Understandably, they are upgrading their airport. Heathrow Airport is being upgraded. Very important. But then let's understand what China has in store as far as this system. Obviously, very obviously, we find then the Bitcoin system was obviously then generated by a person from the English soil. And then there is a developer over there that has then his own software, and then precisely this system was then generated in 2009. So let's understand then the time of the end. There was 1,000 years of deceit, ended in 2009. Then we've entered the time of the dragon, simply precision. Then a time of the restoration of the holy cities of the Messiah, and we've entered then the schedule. How can we understand then this new system? It is already in space. So then let's understand the signal and how it's going to work. For instance, the Bitcoin system does not use banking, regular banking or regulation from government. However, there is a value. When you combine this system, for instance, using a Bitcoin as only a reference, but then when you include investments, products coming out of the line of production of the Chinese factories, then becomes deadly. It can bring down many economies of the world if we don't do our homework. We must do our homework. So then what can we expect? From this time until the next at least 30 months, we will observe then a change of the economy of the world lining up for this time of the end trade. Combination of Bitcoin or then any other virtual monetary system, where then a lot of skeptics, they are concerned with it because there is no value behind it, as then if you would, in the case of a problem, printing out more money to make up for it. However, when you make a substitution from printing of money with investments directly on products coming out of the factories, where then people downloading the system in their computers, they can project what countries would buy what kind of a product and for what reason. For instance, let's say Africa, the Kingdom of the South. We understand development is very big. CMC company from China is starting their works down there, so you can expect a lot of construction, houses. What kind of items would you understand as far as building a home? Lumber. You find electric wires, breakers, you find lamps, you find windows. Then when you download the system of the Chinese in your computer when the time comes, then you select those products where you think would be sold the most. It is a giant, very big, for instance, eBay linked up with a virtual monetary system. So you project what countries would purchase and you make your investment. From a list, computerized, you make a selection of those products and then you invest. There is an icon next to it when you select the item. Invest. Then you invest. If you do these 900,000 times of other products, where do you think then is relevant for your investments, thus you combine then the virtual monetary system and investments at the same time. So then we understand the danger of the Chinese market, not because of itself at the moment, but because what is coming as far as computer, the signal coming from the space and providing the world with this system of investments on products. You don't invest anymore than on companies than gambling with your money. Those times are obsolete. So then the danger is there is already equipment in space in orbit providing this system, but only on standby. When it comes available, then can bring down many economies around the world. And the only way of taxing this system is via then a program linking up the freighters of the country with their tracking systems, where you can include then description, price, and taxation. So then every time there is a label printed, it must have then a policy generating taxes. Let's say, for instance, if you go to a store, if you buy a telephone, if you mention to the clerk you want to purchase at the moment, then you get the phone in your hand. How would you charge tax? Regularly. When you receive your receipt, you receive then a receipt with taxes included. Straightforward. This tax goes straight to the government. Must be instant. Per item. Why it has to be per item? Because when another person makes a decision of not going to the store, but then being shipment provided, then they have to include taxes. But it's not on a receipt. It's on a label of the freighter. So then when the new system comes, every person doing trade with a virtual monetary system, receiving earnings from their investments, where governments, they don't have any control. But when they purchase either a single item, a group of items, or a shipload of them, every item must be included and must be taxed. If it's a retailer purchasing, you charge then a tax the first time. If a person then receives these items and then they turn around and then the item is resold, there is a second tax that must be charged. Because the first taxation is then the product discounted as dealers. The government must charge an amount. Some of those dealers, they have markup of a couple 100%, 500%. Now let me ask you this. Is it fair for the government to charge only one tax for an item that costs 10? But then the retailer turns around and get it sold for 500% markup. Should not the government be charged as tax of every 100% markup? That's where then our system is faulty. We are not charging enough taxes. For every markup of 100%, the government must receive taxes because gives you the total amount covered. So then, can you imagine how many people are purchasing products from abroad for a very low cost and sometimes not even paying taxes? Then they receive their products at home and they have their markup and then gets resold and no taxes. So then when the combination of taxation and freighting, those are combined, per item must be charged tax. If it's a dealer, must be charged twice. Because most often those dealers, they do more than 100% markup. Instantly must be charged a second time tax. Because they get their money back. But the government is not receiving any of it. In order for the compensation, then they have to print out more money. And that's when it ruins the economy, because as we understand, our economy is not improving. It's not improving. The situation, because it's not improving, we find then the system closer and closer and closer and closer until it becomes available. People download their computers and then the government is ruined. And there is no way of going after because there is no more time. Then people are in the system, people are investing, there is no more time. Then they want to have their parcels, then they order parts, they order then products from abroad, and then more ships coming to the port. Then the government has a problem, not enough space at the ports for so many ships. Because the earnings are quadrupling or more because the investment of Chinese products is directly related with the virtual money system. The government has no time for any action. But then people are going to demand their parcels. So we find ourselves in a very big predicament because we have not considered the investments on products related with a virtual money system. So far, the government is trying to fight over the control of the system itself. You can't control the system itself. It was made of being outside of the regular system as we know of. It's a new system. It cannot be controlled. However, the only way of control is then taxation. That's where then we understand labeling. Freight label. So then again, if you go to a store, then if you purchase a telephone, you desire to take it by hand, then obviously you get taxed on a receipt. If you get on the computer and you order it, then the dealer is not going to charge you tax on the receipt. Must be charged on a label, on a freight label. Because then we move from trying to control the system and then including or having the inclusion of the freight labels. And that's most of the bulk of the taxes coming from in the very near future. So then rather than governments being concerned with systems and how to control the market, the problem is not how to control the market. is how to upgrade themselves in receiving taxation after the new system is implemented. So the government is working against itself, is working against the system, and they are not being very productive. And not only this, we find then many areas of this new system where you can include petroleum, you can include precious stones, you can include gold, silver, you name it. That's when the whole system of the world then changes, and then they do direct trade, no longer using a monetary system where it is then dependent upon a group of people or dependent upon a market of money printing and then government and mixing up. Some people are then honest, the great majority are scoundrels. And then the people, rather than receiving the best at the end of it, they get the worst of it. That's why during this time of the end, we find then a virtual monetary system, and you find investments directly related with the products in this virtual monetary system. The only way of receiving taxes is via labeling. There is no other way of doing it. The other way of doing it, if doable, is then when a person wants to transfer from the system, where it is a virtual system where the government can't control. But when a person makes a transfer to using USDs, then depending on the amount, a person could be taxed. Obviously, the people they are going to use the minimum. But then when they spend and they purchase, that's when they get taxed. So then there are lots of considerations for the government then to understand. Freighters of the earth, they are going to be leading the way. Places in a very interesting predicament because precisely this system they are being implemented in the entire Asian Pacific area where it is absolutely normal talk. In the West, we are trying to control the system itself, and then in the Pacific, they are 100% with it. But we have not realized yet the importance of taxation and freighting. So then many people say, then, is the Savior then God? When we read these understandings, where do we get from? You get from Galah, Revelation. And he said the freighters of the earth. Where was he speaking from? He was speaking from the Holy of Holies. The Messiah was not in a cave speaking with Yohanan. Yohanan was in the first holy city of his time. So the Messiah was speaking from the Holy of Holies, and he saw from there freighters in charge. They had the forward motion of the time of the end. So then if we are hesitant of understanding this factor, try to understand how the Asians over there on the other side of the world are dealing with it. They are for years doing this direct trade. So this system is already set up and waiting for the proper time. When it comes, it's absolutely deadly. Then the governments, they're going to kind of stare at each other. Why didn't we do this before? It was so evident. The virtual money market involved with direct trade and then direct investments on products using a virtual market. Why didn't we do this before? And then you're going to try to put the blame on each other, and then there you go again, the government trying to enjoy each other's incompetence. But this time, when it comes, is absolutely deadly. It's going to put us out of the trade. You can be absolutely sure they want us out of the trade. And the only way of avoiding is by tracking then packages, making sure then each box, each parcel, each item. If you purchase 100 items and it is then the shipment in a box, you have to have a total of tax of each of those items, a total at the end, linked up with the tracking system. When the label is generated, tax is then deducted. Must have an integration, because if you study the Bitcoin system, you can purchase with Bitcoin. Is the government receiving taxes? It depends upon the integrity of the dealer. The dealer could give taxes or could not. It's his or her choice. So let me ask you this, when the new system comes and it's not tracked, how the government is going to get taxes? Because we are not dealing only with an idea, we are dealing with a reality. That's how China is going to take over the market over the world. By combining then a virtual monetary system with the investments, what comes out of their product line. A product being built comes out of the belt. You in your computer, you invest from this month of May until June. You have projected 30 days where you invest in a certain amount of those products coming out of the fabrication line. As the people of the world, they purchase the products, then you get a tiny share of those. It's not very big. But when you have these times 100,000 times, 900,000 other items, then every each of those, then you get a nice paycheck. But then comes from the investments directed to your virtual monetary system. Governments have no control. You could have 12 digits, 24 digits, 48 digits in there. The government doesn't receive a cent. This is what the Chinese has. And when it comes, then it's deadly. If we are not prepared, then we can shut down our government. It's not printing money that is going to be against the system. We must have production. And we do not have enough production. However, when this system comes and taxation is done via freighting, every item coming to this country, every item sold in this country, then must be taxed per item. You go on your computer, you make a purchase of 10 items with distinct prices, each of them must be taxed. There is a total at the end of the receipt. If a person comes and gets himself or herself, then they pay tax on the receipt. Goes straight to the government. If it's freighted, goes on the label of the freighter. Because any person making any purchase anywhere in the world related with our country must be instantly taxed. Otherwise, government won't be able to get any taxes from the new system. So then in your brains, try to come up with an idea of how to charge a tax, but not trying to control the system. The system cannot be placed under the control. So don't play with the system. Play with what people do with their earnings. You are going to find only an answer: labeling of the freighters. This means governments should get together with the freighters of their countries and have them lend you their tracking system and come up with policies of charging taxes. Not only then the government would know what's in the box, where the secret services they can do a quick research. A person having, for instance, shipment in their homes must be registered. In instant taxation,